So if you're watching this video, I think you're already motivated to want to change your negative thinking. You may not know how to do it. You may not know if you can do it, but you can, and I'm going to help you with the how. But the reason to challenge your negative thinking is to disempower those thoughts, is to diffuse the power that those thoughts currently have. So the main concept to keep in mind when we start talking about challenging negative thoughts and hopefully replacing negative thoughts is the feeling of distance from your thoughts. So this was called cognitive distancing initially in cognitive behavioral therapy. It is also called cognitive diffusion in acceptance and commitment therapy. And this was also a concept utilized more than 2,000 years ago in ancient Greece and Rome by the Stoics, who were focused on really how do we live a happy life. And even earlier, this concept was integrated in Buddhist thinking, that by watching our thoughts and not totally buying into them, we could improve our happiness. So I just give you that background so you know this is sort of a well-experienced concept, and learning to be an observer of your thoughts is super important. So let's talk about 5 techniques to distance from your thoughts. The first is to observe the patterns. When you're in a negative thinking mode, what are the themes that are driving that negative thinking? How familiar are those to you? If you can jot down or somehow note the typical patterns, it will help you begin to see like, oh yeah, there I go again. There I go again with negative thinking about the future. Or there I go again thinking I'm not good enough. So these patterns were probably developed very, very early, but we may not even be aware of them until we really begin to watch. So the first step for you is to really think about the patterns and then begin to label your thoughts. What category of thought does this negative thought fall into? Is it about the future? Is it about worrying what people think about you? Is it rumination? Is it anxiety? You can come up with a variety of labels, but just the act of labeling the thought, there's my rumination thought. So labeling thoughts creates that distance we need. It enables us to look at them and not be totally in them. When we're totally in our thoughts, we are fused with our thoughts. But cognitive fusion is when your thoughts become you. And I can relate to this because there were times in my life where I was catastrophizing about something in the future, and it's almost as if I was living it. I could see the entire thing unfold. My body was feeling it. I had all the stress chemicals going as if it were happening, and it wasn't happening, right? So that's cognitive fusion. So labeling, super effective tool. And then being aware of the cognitive distortions, the main 10 cognitive distortions. And we can list them here for you. And I'll also, towards the end, point to a video that I did that involves these. But if you become familiar with the cognitive distortions, and then you'll know your favorites, right? You probably will end up having 2 or 3 favorite cognitive distortions. You can use that to label them. And then you can also just say, I know this thought is distorted. Because it's falling into one of these categories, it's a distorted thought. I don't have to buy into it. Okay, so this next tool works for some people, not for everybody, but I think it's really kind of a fun one because we're all used to creating folders, no longer so much physically, but on our computers. But in any case, create folders. So if your most common cognitive distortions are catastrophizing and magical thinking, in your mind, create a folder for your catastrophizing thoughts, a folder for your magical thinking thoughts. Picture them in your file cabinet if you still have one, or on your desktop if you don't. And when you have a thought that falls into that category, visualize peeling it out, putting it in the folder. Peel it out, put it in the folder. Okay, another technique that I really love is zooming out. So you can actually picture the event that's happening to you as if it's on your TV, and then picture that TV and that entire event getting further and further and further away from you, so it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And when it's really far in the distance, take a deep breath, look around yourself, see what else is around. Breathe in the sights, smells, sounds that are actually there, the things that are actually happening right now in this moment. So that technique, zooming out, can be super helpful. Now, I mentioned that these techniques alone won't solve this problem fully. They're great things to practice, and it's great to integrate them into your other self-help techniques. And the more you can practice these, I really think the more you'll feel a transformation. However, since for so many of us, the negative thinking came from very early negative experiences, probably with a primary caregiver, but not necessarily. But these very, very early experiences really embed themselves in the older parts of our brain. So sometimes to really change negative thinking and, habits that aren't serving you, you have to go deeper than simply the cognitive behavioral work. And most of the work I put out online, and then definitely my online programs, bring you to that earlier stage. It brings you to that deeper work in a kind and gentle way so you can begin to rewire really from the inside out and heal some of those negative core beliefs.